soaring.
Got it.
So it's getting hot in the city that we live in, and I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of guys, men, walking around without their shirts on. And like the other day, it was like maybe 22 degrees for a couple hours, and these guys are just like popping their shirts off. And you know, I think it's kind of a double standard. I think if women can't walk around with their shirts off and it's, you know, not considered and it's not considered public nudity, I don't think dudes should be able to do it either. Also, it's not that hot. It's not. I think it has to be like 30 degrees before you can walk around without your shirt on. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that, but I get that guy's doing it.
Yeah, and maybe either have to be like, you know, doing some labor or at a music festival.
Yes, one of those two things. There's probably some other examples to go along with that, but those are very good ones. I think other than that, I saw a guy yesterday. I was driving to pick Violet up after work, and it wasn't terribly warm out. It was hotter out today. It was maybe like 22, 23 degrees, and he's sitting on his driveway. And I love the people that sit on their driveways as opposed to their backyards. But he's sitting on his driveway in a folded lawn chair, unfolded, and he has one of those like kitchen recycle bins, the small ones, flipped upside down, and he's using it as a little table for whatever he's drinking. It's in a little like little tumbler, and I'm just and as opposed to the men who are walking around with their shirts off, where I'm like, don't do that. I'm like, you know what, dude? You do you. He's like, I was taking out the recycles. I had a little drink. I saw a lawn chair, and I'm like, you know what? This is a party.
Yeah, it's happening. No, I can definitely appreciate that kind of can-do attitude.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, and I'm going this time.
Perfect.
That's my fault.
Good. It's not. Let's not play the blame game here. I think the only people we should be blaming are the people that are taking their clothes off when it's not hot enough. And you know what? That's not fair. That's not fair. I need to check myself because, as you both know, I get very upset when I'm hot, and especially when it's hot out. I don't like it. I've just moved down to the basement for the next 4 months because I can't handle the heat, and I bought a house that had 2.5 stories, and maybe that was a mistake, but you know what? That's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about Commander, and we're going to welcome you to the show. This is Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
And I'm Riley.
And today on the show, we are Dexplaining Riley's Prismari Storm Commander deck. I normally prepare the backstory of whatever commander we happen to be talking about, but there isn't a whole lot to be said about this particular Elder Dragon, and I looked into the other 4 Elder Dragons for the Strixhaven set, and it's really just what you already know. And in case you don't know, each one of them founded their respective college. But other than that, there's really not a lot to be found on them. It always kind of surprises me how they'll give a lot of backstory to, like, you know, we did that Boros Dwarf commander, and that guy had like a whole interesting backstory with T-Balt, and then we go to these Elder Dragons that founded these colleges. You'd think there'd be something. I was expecting some kind of like Harry Potter type Hufflepuff Slytherin rivalry, and there's nothing. So
yeah, right. It's like, do these Elder Dragons get along? Are they against each other? Like, what's the story?
Yeah, I was expecting like a Dominaria level Elder Dragon war, and there's just just nothing.
They're just like, oh, there's 5 dragons. Like, have fun.
So needless to say, we're not going to be doing a lore series about anything relating to Strixhaven. So we're just going to start with the deck categories today, and then we're going to wrap things up with our honorable mentions segment. But before we get to any of that, Eric is going to tell you how you can find us out there on the internet. I always sound like a goddamn loser saying like the internet or the web, but I don't know what to say. And you know what? I'm a big fan of Reboot. You know, it's like you can find us on social media, but it's not just social media. So anyways, Eric, you do your thing.
Over on the interwebs,
It is. You can find us on Instagram at Turn One Soaring the Podcast. Get in touch with us directly via email at turn1soaringthepodcast@gmail.com. On YouTube, we're throwing everything up there. The best way to find us is type in Turn One Soaring the Podcast. And then, if you really like what we're doing here, we have one of those things called a Patreon page. So come on down and check us out. We're over on there, patreon.com/turn1soaring.
Oh, yeah. So,
yeah.
Let's get right to this Elder Dragon. It is Galazeth Prismari. It's 2, a blue and a red for a 3/4 legendary Elder Dragon with flying. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. And artifacts you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast an artifact or sorcery spell. I like the
instant or sorcery.
Oh, what did I say?
You said artifact.
Oh.
That was good.
Whoops.
That'd be good though.
Yeah, I mean it would be good.
Yeah, that would be. I think that might be better, actually. What did I?
Sorry. See you later. Is it? Here's Prismari. That's what this whole episode is about.
So let's get to the first category here. As usual, you can follow along with us by using the link for this deck list located at the top of the show notes. And we're going to be kicking things off with win cons. So we have Aetherflux Reservoir, Crackle with Power, Increasing Vengeance, Mizzix Mastery, Shark Typhoon, and 1,000 Year Storm.
Everything here. Yes, please. This is great.
Yeah, it says a lot about what the deck is trying to do, which I think should be true for this category of any deck or every deck.
Yeah, and so obviously we talked about it on our set review, but Crackle with Power is such a fun card.
Oh yeah.
Like timesing X by 5, like that's pretty cool ability.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess I wanted to kind of highlight some of the nice spicy cards from Strixhaven. So I felt
I did see you sprinkled those through.
Yeah, Crackle with Power is definitely one of those that I'd be interested with playing, because even at X equals 1, like 5 mana, 5 damage. There's not anything to write home about in Commander particularly, but it does have some nice flexibility. And then, of course, like as it scales, it gets more targets and more damage. So it's if you have a handful of mana to pump into it, it's going to deal some serious damage.
I know that Aetherflux Reservoir gets some salt, but I feel like it's a pretty fair card. Not necessarily the first line of text, but the pay 50 life to deal 50 damage, I think is totally fair. And it is really fun even to be on the receiving end of that and see this card kill each opponent, just like, okay, 50 damage to you, 50 damage to you, etc. So I do like the inclusion of this card. I mean, based on the rest of the deck, and we'll get to that, it's not going to be too out of the realm of possibility to do that. But yeah, I just think this is a really solid and it's just a pure commander card and a fantastic storm card, obviously.
Yeah, it works perfect with cantrips.
Ooh, yeah. I also love Mizzix's Mastery. Being Mizzix my first commander deck, this is a great card. And so for everybody, it's a sorcery for 3 and a red, and you get to exile target card from an exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it, and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. You have to exile Mizzix's Mastery, sad face. But it does have Overload for 5 and 3 red, and then so it changes the text by replacing all instances of target with each, which means you just cast every single instant sorcery spell in your graveyard for free.
Yeah, it's gonna mess people up.
Yeah.
Increasing Vengeance is one that I was looking at it and I put it under win cons because I felt like, if you copy a nice big X spell like Crackle with Power, like that's going to do some serious damage. But I also know that it's not quite a win con. It was one of those cards that I could have easily made a section of its own and just called it Increasing Vengeance, right, Eric?
I really like that card as a copy spell card because it does have
Yeah.
the flashback on it as well. So
Yeah, and if you're in a position early on in the game where you have like a faithless looting or something where you just want to pitch that and set it up for later, like I'd be totally fine doing that because you're getting twice the copies when you flash it back from the graveyard.
yeah,
Definitely a card I haven't seen too much since it was printed. I think this was in the Jeskai Commander deck from 2019.
Nice.
I definitely went off with that before.
Yeah, I have seen, but besides that, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen it played. So next category we have here is Storm Enablers. We have Bergi, God of Storytelling, with the flip side being Harnfell, Horn of Bounty. Then we have High Tide and Turnabout.
You're obviously gonna cast the Horn of Bounty side, right?
Yeah, Bergi is like stupid powerful in a Storm deck. It's just like you're just like getting that mana every time you cast any spell. It's kind of nuts.
Honestly, either side, like the powerful thing about Bergi is like obviously every spell you cast with the creature side is generating a mana, but Harnfell, like later in the game, if you're just looking for a little bit more gas and you have the mana to spend to set up a Harnfell or Horn of Bounty, like that's a strong card in itself as well. Like especially if you're comboing out and storming out and just looking for a little bit more extra on that combo turn.
Yeah, and I think if there's a word to describe MDFCs, it is extra.
Yeah.
Also,
Extra.
have you seen the price of gas lately? My goodness. Whew. I don't want to like. This is supposed to be like an evergreen. We try to make this as evergreen as possible, but whew, it's expensive. So I did want to point out Turnabout, a card I really don't see too often. I love Turnabout. It's 2 and 2 blue for an instant. Choose artifact, creature, or land. Tap all untapped permanents of the chosen type target player controls, or tap all tapped permanents of that type that player controls. So this can work defensively if you're gonna get attacked by a lethal amount of damage, for example. But just the ability, obviously you're going to use it for that untapping effect. But even I used to run this card in one of the very earliest iterations of my Sliver Overlord deck when I was running a lot of untap effects like this. I ran Turnabout, and that even got the job done in a fair deck. I'm not saying that this deck is, I don't like to refer to decks as fair and unfair, but it's just, and that deck certainly doesn't fall into the former category anymore if I were to try to categorize it. But it is nice to see that this card in this deck, and especially if you can copy this and do all that tapping and untapping on the stack. It's just this is just a fantastic card. I really don't see it enough in the format.
Yeah, perfect for Storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What one card that I honestly should have put in this category, and I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't, is Frantic Search, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Hey, looks like.
But yeah, I also like how like High Tide and Turnabout just work extremely well together as well.
Oh
yeah, so disgusting.
Yeah. I like, honestly, most of the games that I win in a Storm deck involve some form of High Tide and Turnabout or Frantic Search. So those all pair very well together.
Yeah, we need to all start running like Ruined Halos and name Frantic Search.
No.
That's Riley. That's also your response when I suggest everyone run Scavenger Ground. So I think I'm on something here.
I gotta fight against it. You know what I mean?
Do what you do.
Next category we have here is Protection. We have Arcane Denial, Essence Flux, Pact of Negation, and Swan Song. So this is always one of my favorite categories. I guess because I don't really lend myself to risk. I kind of like to make sure I can do what I want to do in Magic and in general. And I was kind of surprised by the contents of this category when I first looked at this deck, but then I had to remind myself it's a storm deck. So, Riley's keeping the curve very low and just helping that storm count. Riley's doing his thing on his turn. He's taking the game actions. We're going to end up conceding to game actions. That's how this is going to go.
Check on my game
but
actions.
in all those game actions, you're like, oh, I have a counter spell. I have a force of will. I'm going to try to mess with you somehow. And Riley's like, I have a cheap protection spell, and that's going to add to my storm count. Next game action. So
move on.
Exactly. So that's definitely what you have going on here.
Yeah, I definitely tried to focus on some of the cheaper counterspell options, like particularly Swan Song works very well with Galazeth, just because his ability will put a treasure onto the battlefield when he enters. So having that 1 mana counter is definitely useful to protect him, which is kind of a similar reason why I figured Essence Flux might be worth considering, because not only is it nice like protection for Galazeth if I'm trying to set up a turn, but also gives a little bit more flexibility to some of the other creatures in the deck that care about entering the battlefield and tutoring up some sort of combo piece.
Yeah, exactly. And like blue and white have a lot of targeted blink spells like this. And if you have a deck with a lot of ETBs, or your commander in particular has an ETB effect, I think giving protection spells like this, if you want to think of them that way, another look, because I think they're pretty underplayed, and they really do get the job done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like even having the Essence Flux up, like once you cast Galazeth, if you do use it on him when he comes back, you get another treasure, and it's like, oh, cool, I have more mana again. Like that's nothing to shy at either.
Yeah, it's basically like a free Essence Flux.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I did just want to mention, I think like the packs kind of get a bad rap sometimes because they have that lose the game clause, but I think it's better to think about them as there's two situations where I guess there's three situations where you want to cast this. The first one is you're just countering a spell to maybe save yourself or save your board. You're not going to win that turn or on your next turn, so you can pay the 5 mana. The second situation is you're going to cast it for 0, and paying the 5 mana on your next upkeep doesn't matter because you're going to win the game. And maybe the third situation is that you're just going to like counter somebody's turn 1 Soul Ring and just fuck it. But my point being that, a lot of the times you're casting this, or you're putting this into decks that you're going to be able to win, you don't need to worry about the next upkeep because you're going to be winning the game. So that's sort of how I think about, especially Pact of Negation. I think that's probably one of the packs that I put in the most decks.
Yeah. I think that's exactly it. It's either like protecting you to win the game or like a really desperate measure, but it's not really in between.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like having a 0 mana counterspell just lets you go balls to the wall and still have some sort of form of like backup in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's cheaper than ever. I think I recently looked. I think it's like $16.99 on Card Kingdom. So get them while they're hot, kids. Next up, we have artifact generators. We have Brass's Bounty, Dockside Extortionist, Retrofitter Foundry, Sahili's Sublime Artificer, Stormkiln Artist, Trail of Evidence, and Treasure Map. It's one of those flip cards, transform cards. And the flip side is Treasure Cove. Treasure Cove. So Riley, I was wondering, do you have a way to blink the treasure map? I mean, like, not that you need to, because once it's Treasure Cove and you're creating so many treasures anyway, you can use them as a form of both mana ramp and card draw, because with Galazeth on the field, you can tap them for mana and then use Treasure Cove to tap it to sacrifice the treasure you tap for mana and then draw a card. that's probably. I was just.
Yeah.
I looked through the deck. I didn't see anything, but I mean, you don't. It's not like you need to do that. I was just double.
No,
checking.
I think it's more of just a value piece, helping you get your game plan set up, and then giving you a boost of ramp essentially if you have Galazeth out, and also just giving you that engine to turn your treasures from your Storm Kiln Artist or the treasure map itself or Dockside into card draw.
Yeah. Cool. Have you guys seen the price of Retrofitter Foundry lately? It's like $20 on Card Kingdom.
What?
Yeah. I think
What?
it was seeing some vintage play.
Yeah, it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and
it's
I
like
mean-
it's like a trading post for artifacts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, like Dockside is ridiculous as well. He's
Oh,
like
yeah.
$50 right now.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
docs. Yeah, no, it's crazy because I bought the Jeskai spells deck, like that commander deck for around, I think it was like $40 or $50.
Yeah.
Maybe a year ago, and yeah, it's like I could just like crack it open and take the dock side, and I would like pay for the deck.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
But I won't do that because you must keep it sealed.
keep it safe.
That's right. Keep it secret.
Brass's Bounty is also like a great card. And then just with Galazeth, like that creates so much extra mana for you.
Yeah.
Like with Galazeth out, you're like, okay, you cast Brass's Bounty for 7, you maybe have 7 lands out. You get 7 more artifacts, which is 7 more mana for you. So you're like, just double my mana.
Yeah. Can definitely be
And
a big ritual late in the game too, right?
Oh yeah, and it just lets you keep going. Like, oh man,
I have so many promos of this card. I drafted Ravels of Ixalan quite a bit, so I got a lot.
promos out the wazoo.
It's a nice promo, but it's pretty worthless. Next category we have here is cantrips and card draw. We have Arkham's Astrolabe, Brainstorm, Chart a Course, Dig Through Time, Expressive Iteration, Fact or Fiction, Faithless Looting, Frantic Search, Gitaxian Probe, Howling Mine, Impulse, Ingenious Mastery, Ponder, Preordain, Seagate Restoration, flipside being Seagate Reborn, Serum Visions, and Shimmer Dragon. It's nice to see Shimmer Dragon getting some love. I don't think I've seen this card since we did our Throne of Eldraine set review many moons ago. But most of the time it's gonna, if it comes down on turn 5 or 6, it's probably gonna have hexproof. And just tap 2 untapped artifacts. You can be drawing a lot of cards with this baby. Very cool
Yeah,
card.
I guess it does get hexproof, eh?
It does get hexproof, and like it's only for
I want to draw cards
for
Yeah, I was
artifacts.
like-
I
yeah.
think most of the time it's gonna have it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, cast a Brass's Bounty and then draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah,
That's what I was looking at.
Just perfect.
Yeah, Frantic Search is in here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, like Frantic Search and Faithless Looting, like they're not true cantrips. I mean, they're kind of like filtering cards, but you're not at parity with the card advantage, right? Or I guess there is no
Is
card
that the
advantage.
specific
card disadvantage.
definition of a cantrip that you're at card parity at the end of it?
I would consider cantrips to be at parity. Because
Okay.
like
Or better.
card draw or card advantage would be like you come out ahead with more resources than you had in the beginning, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like the cantrips are letting you filter like through your deck, but you're not like down a card because it'll be like, oh, you also draw a card for using up this card.
Yeah, like a cycling effect is a cantrip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also really like Expressive Iteration. It's a new card from Strixhaven. It's a blue and a red for sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand. Put one of them on the bottom of your library, and exile one of them. You may play the exiled card this turn. So I've been playing with this card a little bit in Standard, and if you haven't yet, it is fucking fantastic. So you're basically drawing the best 2 cards of 3 cards, and the only catch is that you have to play one of them, the turn that you cast Expressive Iteration. It is just like for 2 mana, it's great. This I don't think Strixhaven is a terribly overpowered set, but there are some cards that are just really just
fun.
They're just fun and they feel good.
Yeah, this card is super solid.
Yeah. So I love this card.
This is probably one of my favorite like pseudo card draw spells in a long time, like at least since Chart a Course. This gives me like Chart a Course vibes, but obviously it's a little bit more limited, being that it is a like red-blue card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But nonetheless, like it's super strong.
Yeah, I like it.
I also enjoy that you put Ingenious Mastery in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do really like that card, and like paying just the 3 for it I think is still viable.
Yeah,
especially in Commander.
I think it would be fun. Yeah, that's exactly why I left it in. Like I could have easily cut this card and slotted in some other random card draw spell, but I figured this would be something worth experimenting with and seeing how it played out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because before you've played this deck against your opponents, and they know what you're doing after that first time, Ingenious Mastery is going to work great.
Exactly. Just be like, guys, don't worry, it's just Storm. Have some treasure.
It's fine. I got treasure. I also love the include of Howling Mine. Howling
super
Mine's
good.
2 mana for an artifact at the beginning of each player's draw step. If Howling Mine is untapped, that player draws an additional card. So obviously with Galazeth, you can very easily make it so you're the only one drawing the cards, but also, kind of like Ingenious Mastery, if you're letting your opponents draw cards, they're like, well, I'm not going to attack Riley. I'm not going to mess with his board state. He's helping me out.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very political for the person to your left,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think Howling Mine is the card that kind of inspired me to want to build something with Galazeth. Just because,
nice.
I wanted some sort of, Galazeth feels very much like Urza. But Urza's, obviously broken in multiple ways in one. And, I mean, I shouldn't be saying, that's a bad thing by any means, because I built a Storm deck. But I love the interaction of Howling Mine with Urza, and that's definitely what kind of pointed me to think that Galazeth would be fun to build around.
Well, and like Galazeth is really fun to build around in that regard, because then again with Urza, he's like, you want to play your whole deck? Go for it. Like,
does he sound like that?
Maybe.
Yeah, they'll probably do a movie or a Netflix special eventually, and they'll make him a big fat guy, like, you want to play your whole deck? You better do it.
The Phyrexians are invading Dominaria.
Or he'll be like Bane, like, ooh.
Batman.
Watch will break first.
Oh boy. Next up, we have Tutors. We have Goblin Engineer, Merchant Scroll, Mystical Tutor, Solve the Equation, Spellseeker, Tribute Mage, Trinket Mage, and Whir of Invention.
Whir.
I'm still kind of surprised that they printed a card like Solve the Equation. And I mean, into Standard, it's not... I really haven't seen it that much, and just in case you didn't know, Kevin started playing Standard, but it's not seeing a ton of play there, but in Eternal formats, it is fantastic. It costs 1 more mana than Merchant Scroll, but I think it's a better card because it just gets any instant or sorcery spell, no questions asked. Merchant Scroll. It's also a sorcery. It costs 1 less mana, but you can only get specifically a blue instant card. So I'm still kind of surprised that they printed this card. And, both cards are in the deck, so you're totally covered. But man, Solve the Equation is so good. Like I slotted this into my Narset deck, and like I think it'll end up being a mainstay.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic card. I mean, Merchant Scroll gets the important things, right? Like High Tide.
Yeah, High Tide. It gets
Yeah.
go get a Mystical Tutor to get what you really need. Yeah.
Go get a Frantic Search. Go get a Turnabout. Right.
Oh yeah.
Go get an Impulse if you want.
Okay. Sometimes you need that impulse.
There you go. Gonna tutor from a tutor.
But with Merchant Scroll, sometimes you do have to use it to tutor for Mystical Tutor, just to get, and then so that you can go and get the sorcery that you need.
Yeah.
But with Solve the Equation, you're paying the same amount of mana, and it's going right into your hand.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, they're all in here, so you're totally covered. But
Yeah.
man,
And I mean,
and it's uncommon. It's crazy.
It's a fantastic card. And I mean, Spellseeker is a card that I love, and I'll play in Commander as well. And it's just a 1/1 body. It's like that's the most expendable card I could imagine. So like Solve the Equation is even stronger in that regard, where it's giving you any CMC, not just the 2 or less. Arguably,
Also,
that's the important CMC, right?
Totally, absolutely. And also the price of Spellseeker, it's like $40 on Card Kingdom right now.
Yeah.
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 It's just so like
It's an
I
expensive hobby.
remember picking these up for like $3 after this set came out. It's just nuts. And Solve the Equation is probably still like what is it? Oh, $129. Nice.
Yeah, and I think
Still
like
reasonable.
Spellseeker's still gonna have that higher, like obviously with Spellseeker, when we have cards like Essence Flux, we can just abuse the heck out of Spellseeker, which
Yeah.
is really, really sweet. Which is the one benefit that it's gonna have over Solve the Equation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Solve the Equation is a super solid card. And of course we have so many artifacts in the deck, so Whir of Invention is just gonna be like, yeah, what do we need right now? Do we need Artifacts Reservoir to win the game? Do I need some little bit of mana ramps? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I'll
and
get
with
it for you.
Mhm.
With all the treasures, you'll be able to improvise and just go get whatever you want, and it's an instant. So like
Mhm.
whatever, just go get it. Fantastic. Okay.
Fantastic.
Next up, we have Graveyard Use. We have Finale of Promise, Snapcaster Mage, and
Yeah.
Underworld Breach. Snapcaster Mage, maybe you know it, maybe you don't. It's 1 and a blue for a 2/1 human wizard with flash. When it enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. I love this card. I think we all do, but kind of I think underplayed in Commander. It's a modern staple, but even if you're going and like hitting a time warp with this, it's worth it.
Yeah, super worth it.
Like this, like Snap.
I'm just hitting a time warp, no big deal.
Like Snappy in Commander is so good, and I sometimes I feel like I'm the only one playing it.
Yeah, like hopefully our older listeners will know that this is definitely my favorite card in all of Magic, and so you gotta have it in a Storm deck. So here's old Snappy.
Yeah.
Good to see him here.
It makes your life a whole lot easier, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then I love the Underworld Breach as well. This new card is so cool. Just being able to give everything. And it's like, I find it interesting that we have Underworld Breach and not Fires of Invention. Or not Fires of Invention. Past in Flames.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an option. I mean, the nice thing about Underworld Breach is it can get you your artifacts, right?
Yeah, it can hit
So,
anything.
Yeah, because it's each non-land.
Yeah. So, creatures and artifacts it can get. It's just a really powerful card, and honestly, like the fact that it just has that effect on all of your cards in your graveyard for that turn is huge, because like sometimes you just want to cast the same spell multiple times in a turn because it's a great spell.
Yeah,
and it's
this is
kind
fair,
of
like
it's kind of like a watered down. I'm not the first person to say this, but a watered down Yawgmoth's Will.
Yeah.
yeah, like having like Underworld Breach with Frantic Search.
Mhm.
Like you're almost fully paying the cost again, because
Yeah, exactly.
It's 3 cards to escape it, so it's like 1 extra, but it's like we're discarding 2, getting that mana back, and then we can just keep casting Frantic Search to go through the deck pretty much to find what we need.
Yeah, and then you add a 1,000-Year Storm into the mix, and then you could probably just find your Crackle with Power and win.
I'm gonna concede
Yes.
I'm conceding to game actions.
I'm
I'm not letting you do it. It's over.
But yeah, Frantic Search and Underworld Breach is a really cool combo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Frantic Search is just busted.
It is a busted card.
It's just a busted card.
Totally. When was that printed originally? Is that like Urza's Legacy?
It might have been Saga, or is it Saga? I can't remember.
Urza's Legacy.
Ooh,
Oh, nice.
I knew it was the hammer, Riley. Don't even test me.
Who's the hammer?
Okay, so moving on to removal. We have All Is Dust, Blasphemous Act, Galvanic Blast, Pongify, Resculpt, and Soul Guide Lantern. I love this whole deck, Riley, but this category in particular is a lot of my favorite cards. I love a deck that can support All Is Dust. It's so devastating.
Yes.
Okay, it's 7 mana for a tribal sorcery, Eldrazi. Each player sacrifices all permanents they control that are 1 or more colors. So it gets around indestructible, gets around the lesser used regenerate mechanic, and you're just like done. And then Riley's just sitting there with all his treasures, like rubbing his little hands together. It's oh god, I love All Is Dust. It's just so it sucks.
Yes, it sucks for everybody but the caster.
Yeah, it does.
Usually,
it just sucks.
yeah.
So yeah, I love seeing a deck that can support it. Also, Galvanic Blast, very flavorful. It's 1 red for an instant. It deals 2 damage to any target, and it has Metalcraft. So if you control 3 or more artifacts, it deals 4 damage to any target instead. So it's just that little extra flavorful removal spell to take out really anything. Maybe a player who's at a very low life, a planeswalker, a creature, whatever.
Yeah, and I'm just picturing a world where I have 1,000-Year Storm and a number of triggers into the turn, and I'm already, like maybe my Crackle with Power has been countered, but I still have a red mana, so I can Galvanic Blast the table.
Yeah, my example had fewer game actions, but that's also good. Yeah, that's more game winning. Yeah,
we're talking about Storm here. Come on.
Yeah,
Come on.
You're right. No, that's you got it. I just thought of a card that would be a good include and a good synergy with Blasphemous Act in this deck. So, Resculpt, another new card from Strixhaven that I absolutely love. It's 1 and a blue for an instant. Exile target artifact or creature its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. I recently slotted this into every one of my commander decks that could support it. Definitely all of my mono blue commander decks, and I didn't slot out Reality Shift.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this card has more applications. With Reality Shift, they manifest the top card of the library. It becomes a 2/2. If it's a creature, they can flip it up for its casting cost at any time. So that's a liability. With this card, it's just exiled, and it also hits artifacts. This is like a way better Raven form.
Way better,
but
yeah.
They do get a 4/4, which isn't. It's not nothing. I think we talked about this in our set review, and in definitely limited. You don't want to be giving your opponent a 4/4, but we have 40 life, and I don't think this is going to be too much of a liability. I think this is going to become a mono blue or a blue commander staple removal spell. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, and it's at common, which is great.
I know, it's crazy. That's why the foils were like 30 cents.
And then also, like, this card is really neat because there are some corner cases. If you're playing against a Tron player, or a Voltron, I should say, their guy has hexproof and they're coming at you. You don't have any creatures. We can turn one of our artifacts into a 4/4 and chump so we don't die.
There you go. Yeah, turn one of your treasures into a 4/4.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
And
I can
then-
totally. This can save you in that regard as well. So
And then block and then tap it for mana. Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. You might need it. You never know.
Uh,
Another card here we have is Soul Guide Lantern. It's 1 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. You can tap it to exile each opponent's graveyard. Yours is fine. And then you can pay 1 to tap it to sacrifice it to draw a card. Just this flexibility to only exile your own graveyard is fantastic. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite mass graveyard exile cards, and you guys know how much I love exiling opponents' graveyards. So like this is great in a deck where you care about your graveyard, and
Yeah.
in this deck you obviously do. And I was gonna say, like, in the graveyard use section, like you definitely don't want anybody running a scavenger grounds, but this is fantastic, that this card, like what it does. And you know what, if you don't, what's great about it, if your opponents aren't messing with their graveyards too much and they're playing again, I was gonna say a more fair game. I gotta cut that out. It's 2021. This is not what Magic's about anymore. And if you're not worried about that, you just sacrifice it to draw a card. No big deal.
Or with Galazeth, you use it as a mana rock.
Bingo. You got it.
There you go.
Bingo bango, Mr. Bongo.
Oh, you got it. Our penultimate section here is removal. We have Arcane Signet, Everflowing Chalice. Is it Signet?
Sorry, you mean ramp?
Oh, sorry.
You
Yes,
said
I do mean
removal.
ramp. Yes. No, I read that wrong. I can read. We have Arcane Signet, Everflowing Chalice. Is it Signet? Jeweled Amulet, Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, Mind Stone, Soul Ring, Solemn Simulacrum, and Talisman of Creativity. Ooh, this ramp section, we got 10 ramp spells. It's tight. This looks good.
Yeah, so I love Everflowing Chalice in this deck because it is like a 2 mana rock for a lot of people to spend the 2 mana. But if we are in a situation with Galazeth, we can just throw this on the battlefield for free and start tapping it for mana, which is super cool.
For sure.
Oh, yeah, and it adds to the storm count, right? 0 mana spell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of that, Jeweled Amulet, probably lesser known card. I believe we talked about it on the show before. Probably one of Riley's decks.
Yeah. Baron.
It's it's 0 mana for an artifact, obviously. You pay 1, tap it to put a charge counter on it. Note the type of mana spent to pay this activation cost. Activate only if there are no counters on Jeweled Amulet. And then you can tap it to remove a charge counter, and you add 1 mana to your mana pool of the last noted type. So, you tap an island to put a charge counter on this with the blue mana, and then you can tap it the next turn to get that blue mana. You're saving a mana for the turn. It's sort of like it almost reminds me of like a precursor to Coalition Relic, where it's sort of you can bank mana for the next turn, but it's not like you can repeatedly bank mana. But I love this card in this deck. It's a 0 mana spell that can add to your storm count. It can give you a little bit of early ramp, but I've started running this card in a lot of my decks that with commanders with low casting costs, because it'll just Yisan, for example, it can get Yisan out on turn 2. This always this card helps make that happen. So this is just a very cool, very underplayed little artifact ramp spell. It's kind of a funny card, but if you haven't tried it yet in those decks with very low CMC commanders that really rely on getting on the battlefield as early as possible, I'd give it a try.
Me too.
Is that why it's in the deck?
Well, but I mean, it's 4 mana, so like it could help him get on the battlefield as with the ramp spells,
totally
you
does.
could get him on the battlefield as early as turn 2. But it's just a very very cool card, and it's probably not terribly expensive right now either.
I don't
I
think
hope
it
this
is.
episode doesn't change that.
Yeah. I
think it's a couple
only
of
around
bucks.
like a buck
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
It's an old card. I think that's really an old card from Ice Age. So that's the only reason why it's worth something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, like in a similar vein, Jeweled Lotus is a card that I wasn't particularly high on when it was spoiled. And like we talked about it during our Commander Legends spoiler discussions. But with Galazeth particularly, I think it really improves how effective Jeweled Lotus can be both before and after you have cast Galazeth, right? Because
Definitely.
obviously turn 1, Jeweled Lotus land, cast Galazeth. Any time after you've cast Galazeth and Jeweled Lotus becomes useful because it's essentially a mana rock for 0 mana. Whereas like without Galazeth or another, like commander like Urza, for example, that can tap an artifact for mana, it just is a brick, right? It's a 0 mana brick that does nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just sits there staring at you like, hey, look, I'm a Lotus.
Yeah, which is really the downside to this card, which is something that we mentioned when we were talking about it originally. But yeah, it's nice to see a deck where it's not just like, okay, if I don't get this in my opening hand, it's a dead card.
Yeah, it's still got some use.
Yeah, totally. So the inclusion of Solemn, like I know, like I guess what threw me off about this card is that it's a little high on the curve, at least in this category. And is it just that the added bonus to this is that you'll be able to tap it for mana?
It's a bit of a role player, I think, across multiple areas. Just the creature count's not terribly high, so I don't mind having a chump blocker that can get me through an extra turn. But Solemn's not horrible. Like if I am generating a decent amount of mana, or if I need another play, maybe on turn 2 or turn 3, if I've cast like an Arcane Signet, and on turn 2, and then on turn 3 I have 4 mana available to me, and I don't really want to throw Galazeth into the fray, like Solemn is probably a creature that I'm happy to lead with. So I think it's just a decent role player. It's not, I don't think it's gonna like be exceptional by any means, but it's gonna do exactly what I want it to do when I need it to do it.
Yeah. No, I'd sooner run Solemn than I would what is it? God, I'm blanking on it now. Temple of the False God.
Yeah, because I mean this will ramp you, right?
Well, no, I posted something on our like I'll see memes and I'll repost them on our Instagram feed, and I posted it was basically like somebody pissing off of a cliff onto a Temple of the False God, and it got a lot of comments about like both sides of the Temple of the False God argument, and it's just, you never know what you're gonna get when you post something. So
it is the internet.
It's all very interesting. But yeah, and you know what? You can always, like, if you do need the ramp, you can always like Essence Flux it, right?
Yeah, you could Essence Flux it if you want to just get a little bit more value out of it, or you could Whir of Invention for it, or even Goblin Engineer it into your graveyard. Yeah, and then find a way to get it back out onto the battlefield. I don't know. I don't have a Goblin Welder, so there's not that option. And of course, Goblin Engineer is limited to 3 CMC or less. But there are ways, like Underworld Breach, if I really need to. I feel like I'm in kind of a weird spot if I'm Goblin Engineering for Solemn and then Underworld Breaching for it. But who knows?
Totally. So our last section here, last category, is the lands. I think we usually end with the lands. It's we have Command Tower, Fabled Passage, Fiery Islet, Flooded Strand, Great Furnace, Misty Rainforest, Mystic Sanctuary, Polluted Delta, Prismatic Vista, Riverglide Pathway, flip side is Lava Glide Pathway, Scalding Tarn, Seat of the Synod, snow-covered island, 14 snow-covered islands, 6 snow-covered mountains, 1 steam vents, training center, and volcanic island. It's super. You just have all the good lands here. It's just super lean.
Yeah, I did not make this budget friendly, so I don't know if that's obvious, but like
was it obvious by the volcanic island being in there?
The volcanic island, yeah, all these great cards that I don't have a volcanic
fetch
island.
Lands,
but, yeah, all the fetch lands. There you go. I mean, honestly, anything to keep my island count up while still being able to cast my red cards is kind of what I was going for.
Right.
Because I am running High Tide, so it's important to keep it leaning towards islands. But yeah.
Yeah, if you want to shave like $500 off the deck, just don't run Volcanic Island.
Yeah, just slot another island in there.
Yeah.
Also, lose the mana crypt. That's gonna shave another like 150.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's looking,
there's definitely ways to build this on a budget, and maybe that's a challenge
totally.
I can make for myself is to build Prismari on a budget. But this is not a budget deck by any means.
Mm-hmm.
No. I love the Seat of Synod and Great Furnace though, because with Galazeth out there, you can tap them for the opposite color.
That's true.
If you are in that case,
yeah, and turn them into duels. Totally.
Yeah, or find them with Trinket Mage.
Yes.
I
I mean,
used
a lot
to-
of the times I'd rather go for that mana crypt.
That
Yeah, but
that's fair. But if you're really
If you need the color,
itching for that color,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to do what you got to do.
I used to when I had my Brago deck together, I used to love going and getting all 3 with Trinket Mage. Although it wasn't a Great Furnace, it was a Ancient Den, and oof,
yeah.
those were the days. Nobody liked playing with me back then. Okay, so we're going to move on to our honorable mention segment. Eric and I have prepared lists of cards that might work well for this deck. So let's get to
Or
them.
also, if people are looking at building the deck and they want to take it a different direction, these are just some fun cards that might be a neat little addition.
Yes, I also have some fun cards. So I have about, what do I have? Okay, I counted. I have about like 10. What do you have, Eric?
I got 7.
That was my accounting noise. You didn't do accounting noise.
Nope, sorry, didn't do it.
Okay, so I will start things off today. I'll just I have my first card is from the WinCon category. It looks pretty good overall, just like the rest of this deck. But I think you could throw a couple more cards in that like generate infinite mana. That's really not hard to do in blue, but I don't think that's necessary. I do, however, like maybe an inclusion of a let me just pull up Scryfall here, of a Hellkite Tyrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little
6 mana
slow,
dragon.
and like there isn't already a way to flash it in, and that's really what you want to do with Hellkite Tyrant. It's 4 and 2 red for a 6/5 dragon with flying and trample. When it deals combat damage to a player, you gain control of all artifacts that player controls, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. And there's always some bozo at the table that's trying to stop you from winning the game. So it's rarely to like get back to your upkeep and you're still in that position because the bozos. So
The bozos.
Get him out of here.
yeah, get them out of here. So, as like that's kind of a fun option. I think you'd need like maybe throw in like a ley line of anticipation to kind of make that really work for you, because you really want to flash this in at the end step before your turn. But also the Hellkite Tyrant, not enough game actions. So what I was thinking to like a better card for this category would be and it just got reprinted in the Strixhaven Mystical Archive. It is Mind's Desire. It's 4 blue for a sorcery. Shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost, and it has Storm. So whenever you cast this spell, copy it for each spell you cast before it this turn. with a high enough storm count, which you're going to be getting regularly with this deck, once you get the engine going, you're going to be able to cast most of your deck. Which, if that doesn't win you the game, your opponents are going to concede to game action.
I hope so.
Because I'm actually going to have to start doing that. Like, once we get back to like going to stores and stuff, and be like, you know what, guys, it's getting late. I concede to game action.
Yeah.
I'll do it at sorcery speed, but I'm conceding.
Like, unless you shortcut Mind's Desire, you do have to shuffle between each copy. So
we're not gonna make you shuffle. I know you're gonna want to. You're a real stickler, but you don't have to.
I'm just saying that's the rules. I mean, there's not too many X spells, so I think Mind's Desire is definitely something you could run.
Oh, and this was reprinted in the Prismari deck. Cool.
Yep.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Mystical Archive cards were printed as well in the Commander Precons. Like good chunk of them. I don't know if it was all of them, but a good chunk of them at least.
Man, it's so funny how they're willing to pulverize the value of certain cards, and then other cards that aren't on the reserve list, they're like, nah.
Got to keep them guessing,
I guess so.
Yeah.
Got to keep them coming back for more.
Oh, it's working. It's working.
It's working.
Okay, so I got a couple artifact generators.
Mm-hmm.
First one here is a pretty fun one. It's a spell called Spell Swindle. So it's 3 of anything and 2 blue for an instant. You get to counter target spell, and then you create X treasure tokens, where X is that spell's mana value.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we're getting artifacts, which just get us to ramp as well, because when they're permanently out there with Galazeth, we're getting to cast, or we just get more overall mana in the bank.
Yeah, get that. So
it's definitely, it's like, it's a little more expensive than a mana drain, but your mana stays around forever.
I don't think I had anything for that for artifact generation, but I did have for the. I guess it goes in the Storm Enablers section. Yeah, it does. I had very much in the same vein as Turnabout is Dramatic Reversal.
Yeah, because it's 1 and a blue. Instant untap all non-land permanents you control, right?
Yeah, and it's a lot less flexible than Turnabout, because there are those defensive applications you can use for Turnabout, or you can just mess up your opponent's turn, for example. But it is 2 less mana and 1 less blue pip, so I think it's
it definitely does a good impression of Turnabout, especially on turns where like you have a handful of treasures that you're able to generate mana with, and then like have a 1,000-Year Storm on the battlefield and make multiple copies and tap for mana in between if you declare a spell that you're going to cast. But I guess
and I think in a deck like
quite work with a sorcery though.
Yeah, exactly. And with a deck like Joyra, Weatherlight Captain, where she cares about historic spells and drawing cards, that like Dramatic Reversal makes a little bit more sense. And obviously before Paradox Engine was banned, that card made a lot more sense and would also be great in this deck. But because you're creating treasures rather than casting historic spells, I think that Turnabout is a much better card. But if you were hungry for an untapper, that would be a place to look.
Yeah, and I think they could run side by side together. Like it would just be like an extension of Turnabout, or like an additional copy of Turnabout. And it's also a copy that you could find with Spellseeker, which is a big plus. So I think that would be a solid inclusion, especially if you play your Dockside Extortionist, play a Dramatic Reversal, and then just start going off like that. Because I guess Galazeth's ability does allow you, it would allow you to float the mana. You just can only spend it to cast instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
So
They really should have put like as a like the second block of text on Galazeth. They should have given it like the leyline Hellkite or whatever that dragon is, like that mana doesn't empty from, or the Bergie text that you know, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end.
yeah, just get rid of
Yeah, that's just really break the card.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it into like an Urza Junior.
yeah, and then give it an ability where you can pay 5 mana and like mini Mind's Desire.
Whoa, you went too far, Riley. You went too far. I was trying to improve it. You took it too far.
Okay.
The other card to make some artifacts is Metallurgic Summonings.
Mm-hmm.
So this card is very similar to Shark Typhoon, and I think they each have their own uses, obviously. So Metallurgic Summonings is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a XX construct artifact where X is that spell's CMC. But it also has another ability where you can pay 3 and 2 blue to exile the summonings. You return all instant sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. Activate only if you control 6 or more artifacts. So the nice part about Shark Typhoon is that everything you're making is flying.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just like get in there and kill your opponent. But the Energetic Summonings, because they are artifacts, we do get a little bit of mana ramp out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the turn you're going off, being able to bring back all your instant sorcery cards from the graveyard is a pretty cool extra ability that the card has that comes with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I have a card for the protection category. Riley, I really like that you didn't put like lightning greaves or any of that other boring shit in here. But I thought like a really flavorful card and a protection card would be good is Spellskite. So it's 2 mana for a 0/4. It's an artifact creature horror. You can pay a blue or a Phyrexian mana to change a target of target spell or ability to Spellskite. So, you know, not only can this protect your commander or yourself or, you know, whatever is being targeted, you know, assuming all targets are legal. This can also, you play this for 2 mana, and this with Galazeth on the field, it can also tap for mana.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting option. I hadn't considered Spellskite, so pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you don't want to put lightning greaves in there. That's just like it's played.
Come on, it's too easy.
Yeah,
Too easy.
way too easy. And you can tap it for mana. Come on,
Right away.
Right away.
Yeah, it is
That's the
haste.
cool thing is like he like usually need to pay, like it is just a Phyrexian mana, but it is also like, hey, I can tap him to pay for himself.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
That's true. Yeah. Well, no, I guess in a roundabout way you could, I guess, but like you could only spend that mana to cast instants and sorceries, right? So.
Oh yes, sorry.
You're right.
Sorry.
Oh, that's fair. I was getting a little too riled up about it too.
But you know, assuming you have an instance or sorcery, you're basically breaking even.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. The next one I have is for Tutors. It is Long-Term Plans. It's 2 and a blue it's one of my favorite cards. For an instant, search your library for a card, shuffle your library, then put that card third from the top. So with all the cards you're going to be drawing, this card, the Long-Term Plans could be a good include because you know it gets whatever you want and you don't have to you don't have to show it to anybody. So I think like once you get that engine going, this could be a solid include, and it's only 1 blue pip. So in a 2-color deck, I think it's pretty good. I've run this in Narset, which obviously is a very different build, but it's always been good to me.
Yeah, this is a Kevin classic.
Yeah, definitely.
There you go.
This and like Terrain Generator, this would be a great like front and back of a t-shirt.
Yeah.
For me. Definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know where to put against some of these.
Those are the best
So,
ones.
Yeah.
Make it its own section.
We're in Storm. I like copying spells. We have a card called Bonus Round. So this is one of anything in 2 red for a sorcery. Until end of turn, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, that player copies it, and you choose new targets for the copy. So you just get to copy all of your spells an additional time, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely pretty
like
cool. This was on my short list, but it was one of the last few to make the chopping block.
I think it has some comparing it to like increasing vengeance. I think each of them have like their own home. It's definitely good to run them side by side. Because like you do have the instant power with the vengeance, but I think bonus rounds like top end is just a lot higher than that.
Yeah, I could definitely see even swapping out increasing vengeance with bonus round, or finding another swap somewhere else. But for sure, bonus round is definitely one of those. You could argue that's like a turn you're gonna win. So that's definitely a win con.
Yeah. So we already talked about Past in Flames pretty briefly, and Riley, I'm sure you thought about this card when you were putting the deck together. So that's an option. It is less flexible than Underworld Breach, but you only need mana to cast the spells. Mana generated from the artifacts that you're casting, or the artifacts that you're tapping for mana. You can only cast instants and sorceries. So Underworld Breach relies on the number of cards you have in your graveyard. If you don't have enough to essentially escape, you're you can't do it. So Past in Flames is I'm sure it's like on the maybe board, but I have a card for I guess I'd put it in removal. It's Capsize. It's 1 blue for an instant. It has buyback for 3, so you may pay an additional 3 as you cast the spell. If you do, put this card into your hand as it resolves, and you return target permanent to its owner's hand. So unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we can't run Upheaval in Commander, but Capsize can, with enough mana, serve the same purpose, but one-sided. And I think like with the amount of mana you're generating, and I think you can use the mana generated from artifacts to pay the buyback cost. You should have enough mana.
Yeah, you would be
at certain points in the game to bounce enough permanents or every permanent, and your opponents are just going to concede to like having no permanents. So
just
definitely
think of all the game actions from buyback, right?
I know.
So they would have to concede to those game actions.
I concede to game actions. Yeah, just I mean, I love Capsize, and I love buyback in general, especially in a super fair format like Commander.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not like buyback ever gets out of hand.
And the other cool thing is like if you have 1,000 Year Storm on the battlefield, you can like storm off of itself if you have the mana.
Yes. We do need to continuously mention 1,000 Year Storm with most of our card suggestions here, because
that's why it's a win con.
Fucking game winning. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for everyone sitting across from Riley.
Man, it's gonna be bad for me too, because I'm gonna have to count all the frantic search triggers I get.
Why do you think I'm conceding to game actions?
Exactly. It's like, okay, I gotta do math now. Come on.
I'm doing you a favor. Let's shuffle up and play again.
I just have to do math on how many triggers I get first. Hold on. So you mentioned the thing I just wanted to say about Past in Flames, because it's on my list as well. I think it's just like the Storm player in me just wants to play Past in Flames when I'm storming, just from playing Modern. So
yeah, that's fair.
I do like that card.
Yeah, it feels good.
You gotta play what you love.
Just get everything. Yeah, you really do. You know what? Like, as a little sidebar here, you really do have to play what you love. Like, if you're piling a deck and you're just like, this doesn't feel good, you gotta just dismantle it. As hard as it is sometimes, you gotta. That's how I felt about my Brago deck. I was like, I wasn't having fun with it, and I just dismantled it. And now I'm just like, just sphinxes. I'm hitting you in the face. I love it.
And that's how I feel about my Chilean deck. I'm just like, man, this is just not. This is just too much. It's like, it's just too much. And I thought adding Kruga would like slow it down, but no, Chilean's just stupid.
Tulane is just Tulane.
He is Tulane.
Yeah. But yeah, I also have a buyback card.
Ooh.
Again, this is from my like Mizzix playing around time. But it's Reiterate. And that this card is 1 of anything and 2 red. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets with a copy, but it does also have buyback for 3. So if you are in pinches, yeah, you can like, if you really need to start copying things because we're running out of cards or something happened, you have that choice to keep buying back. So it's cool stuff.
Yeah, if you're ever building a commander deck and you generate a lot of mana just as a byproduct, like just keyword search buyback, because the cards that buy back and all you have to do is pay mana to buy it back are stupid broken. Even the bad ones, like Whisper of the Muse, like it's like 1 mana, draw a card, buy back for 5. That's a good card. That's a good card.
Yeah, like if you're in a pinch, like it's late game, like I just need to draw some cards. What else you can use your mana for, right?
Yeah, totally. So I was thinking about maybe suggesting Grape Shot, but I think at the point where you can like one shot somebody with Grape Shot, you're probably already in a position to kill everybody, like when your storm count is that high and your engine is running that hot, because like grape shots 1 in a red for a sorcery. It deals 1 damage to any target and it has storm, so it's like, why would you run something like that? It's more like a murder suicide kind of card in this deck rather than like a win con type of card. So probably not a serious suggestion. But for a ramp card, I do have Goldspan Dragon. It's a little high on the CMC, which I don't love. It is 3 and 2 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying and haste. And whenever it attacks or becomes the target of a spell, you create a treasure token. And treasure tokens you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any color to your mana pool. So with all the treasures that you're creating, this is going to net you just a ton of mana, and so like that's just going to be gravy, and that might help more in the late game. Like once you've created a bunch of treasures and you're in a position to start casting spells and taking a lot of game actions, you play this, and this just increases your ability to cast those spells. But are you really going to want to sacrifice treasures or just untap them and use them for more mana, right? So that's probably what you were thinking when you I'm sure this came across your desk when you were looking at this deck.
Keyword search treasure. Yeah.
Yeah, not as many as I would have thought. I also did a keyword search treasure. I would have thought there was more than there is. But even I mean, it's only been around for a few years, but it seems to be very like much more virulent among cards than like clue tokens. Like that's a pretty I don't think we've seen that mechanic return, and I really like clue tokens, and you have a card in here that creates clue tokens, so it's nice that you're throwing the clue tokens a little bit of love.
Yeah, I mean, Trail of Evidence is perfect. We didn't really talk about it either. But
no, we
it's
didn't.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's where do we have that? It's an artifact generation. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, investigate. So you create a colorless clue artifact token with pay 2, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. So you don't even have to tap it. So you can tap it for mana for an instant or sorcery spell with Galazeth on the battlefield, and then you get to draw a card. So yeah, this is a super solid spell. And once you get that storm going, you're just getting clue tokens like crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so the last fun card I had here was Storm the Vault.
Oh, I have that one too.
Hey.
Hey.
So it's a flip card, so 2 of anything, red or blue and red. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Who cares? At the beginning of your hand step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, transform Storm the Vault into Vault of Catlacan. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Woohoo! Or, you can tap it to add a blue to your mana pool for each artifact you control.
Yeah. Tolarian Academy Reborn.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the hardest time I had with this one was just the fact that I felt like I couldn't justify it given the amount of creatures I had. Right? Like, there's not too many creatures, and most of them are little dinky things. Like, unless I'm generating a bunch of sharks with Shark Typhoon. But like at that point, I figured, if I'm already generating a bunch of sharks, I'm probably doing okay. Probably don't need a Tolarian Academy at that point, but who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah, because
that's
you're dumping a bunch of mana. Maybe you got that crackle with power, and you can
There you
go off super early with it.
There you
yeah,
go.
and I wasn't thinking about
There
this
you
so much
go.
with the creatures. I was thinking, you don't really need to worry about the creatures too much. But I see your point. It could be kind of a win more card, and it's kind of even now it's
this whole deck is a win more deck.
yeah, it is. It is, but it's it is kind of hard for me sometimes to like before I start actually putting a deck together in paper, if I end up doing so, that's sort of the last step I take, is like the whole like combing the deck for like win more cards. Because it's like, does this, what is this doing for me? What is this doing for Kevin? And
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should all be doing that.
Yeah.
So I have a few more cards. I have another ramp card here, which is kind of a salty ramp card in Hull Breacher.
Sure.
Does Winter Orb count as a ramp card in this deck?
It does. It does. I thought about suggesting it, but I didn't think you were going for that.
I tried to stay away from the stack stuff. I just, it's one of those things that's like, there's some stacks pieces that are like, yeah, I think that's a little bit more socially acceptable, but I just don't enjoy playing that kind of stuff myself too much.
No, I don't either. I really don't.
Yeah, the kind of stuff I'm looking for is like Howling Mine. Like, yeah, you can have a card, but not you.
No, not you. Yeah, totally. Like, I don't like the I don't like stopping players from doing things that should like sort of naturally happen in a game. And like I like playing more competitive Magic. Like I love competitive. I love like CEDH. I love Modern. But yeah, like, stopping players from getting an untap step, like it just feels wrong to me.
Yeah, it's just it's because I think it's because it reduces interaction. I think the most fun in Magic is when there is an opportunity for interaction, right?
Yeah.
Like when you have a crazy stack going on, or when you try to make a big play and somebody makes a bigger play on top of it, like that's where you get most of the stories from your games, right? It's not, you don't get the story of like, oh yeah, I got locked out with Winter Orb on turn 3, like, and then I didn't play Magic for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's probably the best way I've heard of that being put. So a card that I normally put into the ramp category is Ancient Tomb. I know you're very island hungry. You're very like blue mana hungry, but it's not sexy, but it does get the job done. And you're already in the poorhouse with this deck, so why not?
Exactly.
And the last, like I said, the land category in this deck is super lean, super solid. But you could run a couple more utility lands, like a strip mine is always a solid option. But also I thought of a card after you suggested in my Tulane deck, which I think is a little more fun than your Tulane deck. I built a Tulane Persistent Petitioners deck.
Yeah.
You can check it out on Deckstats. It's pretty shitty, but I have fun with it. But a card Riley suggested I throw Alchemist Refuge in there because I got to a point in the game where I could have won, but I needed to be able to cast, like my Thassa's Oracle at instant speed, and it's a creature, so I just couldn't. But I thought about, for this deck, Emergent Zone, which is kind of like the poor man's Alchemist Refuge. It taps for a colorless mana, and you can pay 1 to sacrifice it, and you may cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So, with all the sorceries and stuff, and if you just wanted to storm off when it's not your turn, this would give you the opportunity to do so, or respond to somebody else trying to win the game. That's my last card. That's it.
Right arm.
Sweet. Love this deck.
Yeah, it's super sweet. Like we said at the top, you can find the deck list by using the link at the top of the show notes, and there's a few cards you could swap out to make it a little more affordable, but
for sure. Well, and even there's an Arkham's Astrolabe in there, which gives you like a snow-covered mana base, right? But you could easily, find a different card to fit into that slot and run just regular basics, right? So there's definitely opportunities to make it a little bit more budget-friendly. I'm sure that would be an interesting challenge for myself just to go through and see what I could swap out to make it more budget-friendly. But I definitely... just kind of let myself go with what I could do.
Oh yeah, that's
just
what's
to
fun.
see what I could put together.
Nice. Well, as long as you're not letting yourself go physically, I think it's okay. It's okay to do when you're building a deck on Deckstats, because I definitely do that myself. And then the cards that are like ridiculous, like with like the Canlander decks, like I don't have a Black Lotus or any Moxen, but they're on there because I just.
Proxy.
I fake it.
Fake it till you make it. There you go.
That's right. So with that, we're going to bring another Dexplained episode to a close. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back next week. In the meantime, if you are fixing for more Turn 1 podcast material, we have a large library of episodes on all the major platforms and YouTube, and we actually have playlists on our YouTube channel if you're looking for something specific like set reviews or episodes like this, our deck techs or our lore episodes, or there's other playlists. I can't remember them off the top of my head. There's quite a few. But anyways, we will be back next week. But until then, just take it easy and be safe out there. And you know what? Hey, get vaccinated if you can.
Do it.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
And
Bye.
it is my finale of promise. We will be back next week.
Ooh, got him.
You did it.
It's a mythic. It's a mythic.
Yeah.
Turn 1 Soul Ring.